So, spoiler warning for all of Angel and all of Buffy. With that out of the way, let us proceed. We've been looking analytically at Buffy and her romantic partners. Here, I want to go a little bit further. I've done a little bit of work on this, as have others, that Joss Whedon is a big comic book fan, and we often see a Marvel slash MCU influence in his work, and especially in the Buffyverse. That's not to say there's no DC influence. There is that too. Buffy is basically Spider-Man, and Angel is Batman, and Willow is kind of a Scarlet Witch slash Jean Grey character, especially when she becomes Dark Willow and Dark Phoenix. Then where does Riley fit in? And I'm gonna try to articulate that he does not fit in, and that is essentially why the relationship failed. I think we can break down Buffy's long term romantic interest into three categories, and Riley does not fit a critical category. One, they all have to be very, very good fighters. They have to be able to take care of themselves in a fight because at critical moments, Buffy will be distracted if she thinks someone is in danger. So they need to be able to handle themselves. And I think technically, by that standard, Riley fits. Secondly, they all consistently have a dark past or darkness within them. Now, that's not to say they need to be demonic or monstrous. Spike, in trying to seduce Buffy, sort of tells Riley and her that she's attracted to something demonic or monstrous in men, and I think this is basically Spike lying. She definitely seems to prefer, quote, men with demonic blood or demonic powers, so on and so forth. But again, it's not always, because we have Robin in season 7. He is technically not a demon, he is a human being, but this is where we get to the third category is there has to be a link to the Slayer mythology, either directly or indirectly. With Robin, it's direct because he's the son of the Slayers. With Angel, it's very direct because of the prophecy and his role in seasons 1 and 2. With Spike, it's a little bit more indirect, but it is vital in season 7 where he sacrifices himself to basically save the potentials and save Buffy and destroy the first, or at least the physical incarnation of the first. So you need to have a link to the Slayer mythology, and this is, I think, where Riley really falters. So who is Riley? Well, textually, and they say this explicitly, he is Captain America. So he fits categories 1 and 2. He's definitely a good fighter, although we can obviously debate how good a fighter and where his fighting skills come from is never really clarified. He has his time with the initiative, but again, we don't know too much about his background. And that gives us number 2. And there is, quote, although I do think it was frankly a little contrived because Adam does this weird doppelganger, you're my brother, we're both sides of the same coin, etc., etc. It's not very strong, but it is there. And of course, if you look at the MCU proper as well as the Marvel comic books, you will know that Captain America sometimes does things over the edge, crosses the line legally, ethically, morally to do what he perceives to be the right thing, to help a friend, to vindicate his ideals. So even though Captain America himself is noble, his past is often shrouded in very dark elements, whether Hydra, the super soldier program, so on and so forth. So he's a very troubled figure, and I will do more on Captain America. And the interesting ways it does tie into Buffy, but perhaps not in the ways that people expect. However, this is where Riley is a very tough case because even though he is a kind of Captain America figure, he's not the right kind of Captain America figure. Captain America himself does encounter the occult. He does sometimes collaborate or work with people who are magical, Doctor Strange, and so on and so forth, but he himself is not a magical person. On top of that, Captain America, as we read him, has no real connection to the Slayerverse or to the Buffyverse, which would make sense because they're different universes. But again, sometimes Joss Whedon has bled the two universes together. I'm not going to get into that here, but if you do follow Buffy and his other work consistently, you will note, in fact, there is an intersection in the text between the MCU and Buffy and Angel. But I'm not going to get into that right here. So no, the two universes have been united and even intersected with one another. The problem is this version of Captain America doesn't really fit the needs of Buffy romantically or thematically because, again, besides being portrayed as being too noble or too pure and then falling to some darkness, which itself is a kind of problematic storyline. Again, I'm not going to go into the particulars. I do think they tried to give Riley a darkness, And this, I think, is where the link to the Slayer mythology is very critical because when he, quote, cheats on Buffy or tries to experiment with female vampires, he's basically acting like a tourist into the Buffyverse. In other words, he's treating all these things as someone going on vacation. He's not taking it seriously. Now, whether you think Buffy or Riley was right, I actually take Riley's side more than Buffy. I do think he had a point that he's sort of intrigued as to why she keeps seeking out kind of men with a dark past, including himself. However, I do think he doesn't understand what it means to be a romantic partner to the Slayer. It takes on a huge responsibility, and he's not acting responsibly enough. So it's not his lack of superpowers, but his lack of judgment that is very dangerous.
Do you think that I spent the last year with you because you had superpowers?
Now, I will say, in terms of the plot of season 5, it would have made sense for the breakup to happen either earlier or further down the road because she does need help with Glory. But that's a separate subject. But I do think they could have structured the season better for the breakup. But nevertheless, I do think Buffy is correct overall. He's acting irresponsibly. And that's not something we see with Robin Wood or Spike or Angel. They definitely do things which are very borderline stupid or crazy. Robin tries to kill Spike. Spike puts Dawn in danger at certain points. And Angel, of course, does things which were pretty foolhardy and put everyone in danger. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, they were very serious about Buffy's safety, and they understood the power and mythology of the Slayers, and they understood their place in the world and how important the Chosen One prophecy was to the world. And Riley never does. He sort of just treats it all as a kind of interesting sexual fantasy he's playing out. That, oh, you're Spider-Man. I'm dating Spider-Man. Oh, that's really neat. And that's not what she needs. She needs someone who takes this issue very seriously because although it's a bit of a fake out, she's concerned that her being a Slayer is making her into a killer. And yes, there is a death theme, but the twist was it's not her being a killer, but her willing to basically embrace death to save Dawn. And that's again something that Riley never really comprehends is the way death and love are interlinked with the Slayer mythology. He just treats it all as a kind of interesting fantasy adventure, and that's not really a responsible position for the kind of Captain America figure that they built up. So I do think there are probably other reasons why the relationship wasn't going to work, but I think mythologically, this version of Captain America doesn't make sense because there's no organic link to the Slayer mythology, and that's why at the end of the day, Riley probably just doesn't fit in the Buffyverse as well as some of the other men who are romantic interest for Buffy.